Did the 2025 JW annual meeting quietly erase the 144,000? Now that's not a clickbait. That's a serious question. Because during this year's annual meeting, there was no announcement about birthdays, no police reversal on blood, and no bombshell on disfellowshipping. And yet, one phrase, one line, all of us are in a spiritual temple, not just the anointed, said Gerrit Lösch. If you're new here, welcome to Tell Me Dr. K, a channel manipulative religious leaders wish you never discover. I'm Dr. K, a theologian, polemist, and international consultant. If you crave for such deep dives like this one, subscribe and smash the notice bell for more. Now, that sounded like a spiritual reminder, a feel-good statement that is meant to unify the flock. But if you've been paying attention to the Jehovah's Witnesses theology for more than a minute, you know that that statement is loaded. It challenges a century of teaching. It collapses the sacred barrier. And it might be the first domino in the dismantling of the 144,000 doctrine as we know it. So the question is, why now? What is the governing body trying to achieve with this sudden reframe of the temple? Let me break it down. For over a century, the Watchtower Society taught that the spiritual temple was the domain of the 144,000. Heaven-bound, spirit-anointed Christians. The rest of Jehovah's Witnesses, the great crowd, they stood outside the temple, figuratively in the courtyard, observing, worshipping, but not in. Suddenly, in 2025, the sacred divide disappears. And the question is, why now? The odd view, inside versus the outside of the temple. Let's rewind. The Jehovah's Witnesses have long taught that God's spiritual temple is the heavenly arrangement, where the anointed, the 144,000, serve as priests. The great crowd, or the majority of the modern day witnesses, had access only to the courtyard of the spiritual temple, representing an earthly relationship with God.
What is the great spiritual temple? Jehovah's great spiritual temple is his arrangement for offering acceptable worship based on the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. In ancient times, faithful Israelites worshipped Jehovah at the tabernacle. Examining the tabernacle will help us better understand the great spiritual temple. The high priest represented the people before Jehovah. Once a year, the high priest would enter the most holy compartment of the tabernacle with the blood of a sacrifice. This sacrifice would atone for the sins of the nation. Jehovah anointed Jesus as high priest of the great spiritual temple in 29 CE. After his death and resurrection, Jesus went before Jehovah in the most holy of the spiritual temple, heaven itself. There, he presented his ransom sacrifice once for all time, for all people. The ancient tabernacle had a barrier that separated the most holy from the holy. Today, the holy represents the spirit-begotten condition of those who have the hope of serving as priests in heaven while they are still on earth. The curtain, separating the holy and most holy, represents the human flesh of spirit-begotten ones, something that prevents them from entering heaven. Outside the holy, before performing sacred service, priests cleansed themselves by means of a copper basin. That copper basin reminds the anointed to remain spiritually and morally clean. Do those that hope to live forever on earth have a place in the spiritual temple? In a vision, John saw a great crowd rendering Jehovah sacred service day and night in his temple. he hears them say, "Salvation we owe to our God, who is seated on the throne, and to the Lamb." The great crowd acknowledge that the ransom sacrifice of Jesus makes living forever on earth possible. Where in the spiritual temple do they worship? The tabernacle had a courtyard where priests performed their duties. The temples constructed later had an outer courtyard where those who were not priests could worship God. Those of the great crowd worship Jehovah in the earthly courtyard of the spiritual temple. They, along with the anointed, joyfully worship Jehovah in his spiritual temple by approaching him in prayer, publicly declaring their hope, meeting together, and encouraging one another. We can worship Jehovah anywhere as long as we remain in his spiritual temple. This arrangement will lead to the uniting of Jehovah's universal family. Jehovah God will fulfill his ultimate purpose.
This wasn't just symbolism. It reinforced the hierarchy the anointed were in. Everyone else, near, but not there. They couldn't partake of the emblem at the memorial. They weren't spiritual priests. They had no heavenly hope. The line was bright, unmistakable. Then came October 4, 2025. Gerrit Lösch took the podium and casually made a statement that the non-discerning may not have noticed, and announced that the term temple applied to, number 1, Jesus' body, number 2, the anointed in heaven, number 3, the congregation on earth, number 4, even Jehovah himself. And this was the headline: all of us, the great crowd, ordinary witnesses, all of them. The sacred inner structure, previously exclusive, was suddenly redefined as shared space, a temple for everyone. But what does that mean for JW theology? Is this spiritual equality, doctrinal refresh, or is something more strategic? Now, to the untrained ear, this sounds inclusive, even uplifting. But to the trained ear, this is different. Now, the real function of the spiritual temple was never theological. It was sociological. The temple arrangement told every non-anointed witness, you are second class. Respect the anointed. Follow the lead. Don't even think about heaven. So when was that line erased? What's happening? Is the governing body preparing us for the collapse of that hierarchy? Or are they tightening the flock by flattening the majority? Here is the context you didn't hear in the meeting. The organization is losing members. The anointed class is edging out. Fewer people claim to be among the 144,000. And the belief in strict class-based salvation is wearing thin, especially among younger members. What do? You rebrand the temple. You collapse the wall. You blur the distinction. And suddenly, everyone feels special again. All witnesses, anointed or not anointed, can say, I'm in the Jehovah's temple. I am in. I belong. It's brilliant and subtle. But make no mistake, it's a loyalty maneuver, a recalibration of the identity to preserve unity and slow the bleeding. The psychological shift, elevate to contain. By inviting everyone in the temple, the Watchtower is doing what every corporation does when the morale is low. They give out titles, change labels, they elevate employees, so they don't lose the employees. It's about belonging. And more importantly, it's about control. Because when you feel honored, you obey willingly. When you believe you are in the inner temple, you don't question who is holding the key. But the structure hasn't changed. The language has. You are still not partaking of the emblems. You are still not called a spiritual priest. You are still told your hope is on earth, not in heaven. but you are now in the temple. And somehow that's supposed to feel like progress, a subtle step towards the future change. Here is one more possibility. This new temple teaching might be preparing members for even bigger changes. What if the organization is preparing to revise its long-held stance on the heavenly hope? What if in 10 years the 144,000 ceiling dissolves? They couldn't make that leap chord. But by first saying that everyone is in the temple, they soften the theological soil. The seed is planted. No, this was not a symbolic refresh. It was a calculated pivot, a reframing of status, a softening of hierarchy, a test balloon for deeper changes. The governing body isn't just teaching theology. They are managing identity, loyalty, and legacy.
So here we are, right on the cusp of the outbreak of the Great Tribulation. You have an identity, garments, an identity as a faithful witness of Jehovah God. Keep your identity. How? By keeping awake spiritually. The article from which our text is taken, entitled "Your Deliverance is Getting Near" in the July 15, 2015 issue of the Watchtower, points out, in harmony with the Scriptures, boiling down a number of scriptural facts, that Babylon the Great will be destroyed. Then, the initial part of the Great Tribulation will be cut short. There will be a brief respite during which the majority of mankind will seek refuge in human organizations. Our message of good news will change to one of judgment. Then the coalition of nations, referred to as Gog of Magog, will be bent on attacking Jehovah's anointed ones and their associates. Now, only loyal love for Jehovah, obedient support of his anointed ones, will get us through. That will mean everything. So what must we do now? Stay awake. You have an identity, not just Bethelite, Gilead graduate. No, you've worked hard with Jehovah's help to establish an identity as a Christian worshiper of Jehovah. Keep it.
They know that the old distinctions no longer resonate with the younger members. So they've decided to speak the language of inclusion without changing the power structure. The real temple has actually not changed. Only the illusion of access has. If you are current or former Jehovah's Witnesses, I want to hear from you. What do you think of this spiritual temple? What came to your mind immediately when you heard that all of us are in the spiritual temple? Does this shift in the temple language change how you view your place in the organization? Or is just window dressing? Comment below, share this video. In the second video, we analyze the second subtle shift that was announced at the 2025 annual meeting. To watch episode 2 of this series, subscribe and smash the notice bell. Now, if you are interested in watching my analysis of other changes that the Watchtower, particularly the governing body, has made, click on this link.